Dobro jutro. Good morning, everyone. I'll be speaking in English. On behalf of the Center for Renewal of Culture, I want to welcome you all this morning to our academy aimed to educate future leaders. So I want to initially thank New Direction, represented here by Robert, for their generous assistance and willingness to sponsor this event. We were just together in Estonia a few days ago, and so I'm pleased to welcome you here in Split. We hope this is the beginning of a long-term relationship. We're very keen on continuing these programs here in Croatia. I also want to thank all our partners who have joined us here. First and foremost, the gentleman from Leadership Institute based in Arlington, Virginia. Ron and Steve were recently in Croatia, in Zagreb, in February, and this is a continuation of our cooperation. Rick, welcome to you as well to Croatia. Domovinski Pokret Homeland Foundation is a relatively new political force here in Croatia. It was founded just over 2.5 years ago. I'm pleased to welcome the president of the party, Ivan Penava, who's here with us today. Ivan is the mayor of Vukovar and has been the leader of our party since last October, and he'll make a few remarks here this morning after I'm finished. So we are all encouraged by the election results in Italy. I want to make a remark regarding that and congratulate Giorgia Meloni for her victory. We now have an ally coming to power in Rome, and so that's very good news. At our center, we realize, of course, that politics are important. It's crucial to be in the fight for the future of our countries. But what in the end will determine the fate of our nations is culture. I think the left very much understands this. That's why they pay so much attention to the battle of ideas, to controlling the institutions, which unfortunately is the case in many countries, academia, the media, etc. And so politics, in our view, is downstream from culture. Who controls the culture has a tremendous advantage in politics, obviously. And here in Croatia, we have lots of work to do. I would say the legacy of communism runs very deep. Many of these institutions are still controlled by people who are either Marxist or tend to sympathize with the left. That includes the mass media, but also other key institutions. And so our center, our think tank, the Center for Renewal of Culture, was founded with the purpose to educate young leaders, young Croatians in virtue, in the basic principles that built Western civilization, including the harmony between faith and reason. So we've been doing programs since 2009, and I'm pleased that this is the first joint event here sponsored by New Direction. Croatia is a country, I think, that has great potential. We've suffered since gaining independence in the early 90s. Unlike other countries in Central and Eastern Europe, we had to fight a war to win our freedom. So we take freedom seriously. We'll be discussing later in the second session what is the nature of freedom. I think it's impossible to discuss it without referring to moral truth. So freedom is something that belongs to each, intrinsically belongs to each and every human person, but can obviously be misused and for wrong ends. And so before we can address freedom and what it is, we have to also discuss what is good. What is the purpose of a human person's life? What is a good life? These are questions that have been posed for millennia by philosophers and others. And so we will, through the course of this program, be discussing this in various perspectives, including economic freedom. It's not enough just to have your own independent country, as we know. Croatia, I'm afraid, compared to other countries like Poland and the Czech Republic, is lagging behind economically because we have failed, our political elites have failed to implement reforms necessary for our nation to flourish. And one of the reasons I can say they have failed is because the latest census figures released just last week revealed that in Croatia we've lost 10% of our population in the last 10 years. 10%. That's been one of the results of the mismanagement of our country. And so many young people are leaving. And that's still a threat today. So we want to push this agenda that economic liberty is important as well. So I look forward to all the sessions. We have a very good agenda organized, and I want to again thank all the speakers for taking time to join us here today.
Dobre utro. Good morning. As Stephen very generously introduced me, I'm here from New Direction, and for those of you who don't know, we are a Brussels-based think tank, which means that we are in the very belly of the beast trying to promote conservative values across Europe. We were founded in 2009 by the former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, who is displayed behind me. And our aim is to continue to preserve and project her values and the values of the conservative movement, not just in the United Kingdom and Brussels, but across the entire European Union, which is exactly why we host events like this, like our Young Leaders Academy, which so far this year has been held in 4 different EU member countries, with the aim of reaching out to the next generation of young leaders and conservatives. Because for us, the recognition is that the conservative movement doesn't have a future unless we invest in the future. So it's an important step for us to come to places like Split or to Tallinn or anywhere around the European Union to engage with the next generation of leaders, to teach them the value of freedom, which is something that we're very much losing sight of. And that is not just freedom in terms of, as Stephen mentioned, cultural freedom, but political freedom and economic freedom. Because without that, really, where would we be? All of the great progress that has been made in the last 20 or so years since the collapse of communism has been as a result of the creation of a global free society. And all of that is once again under attack, not just externally, as we've seen by Russia against Ukraine, but also internally from the resurgence of what might be referred to as the regressive left, a left-wing movement that is undermining everything that we stand for, that is pulling back away from an idea of individual freedom towards an imagined collective good. So New Direction's role is to help foment the debate and create a platform from which we can discuss the commonality of our conservative movement. Because unlike the left, we don't have universal values that are the same in every single country. Conservatism differs from nation to nation. A Croatian conservative is not the same as a Swedish conservative or an Italian conservative. And what we should be looking at is not creating some kind of unanimity, some singular movement, but rather helping individual movements in each country develop so that they can protect their own unique identity. And that's very much what New Direction aims to do. And it starts with discussion. On the left, they're obsessed with shutting down debate and silencing any alternative opinion. For us, it's a matter of inviting those opinions and working out where it is that we can agree. And once we start doing that, we can start expanding our movement, building a stronger European conservative identity, and going forward to win elections. And we can see where the success has already taken place, because last night, the centre-right returned to power in Italy. A week ago, it returned to power in Sweden, and hopefully in a week's time, it'll continue to be in power in Latvia. And that's very much where New Direction sits. So it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much.
Well, I feel coming to part of my home because I have relatives. My grandfather was born in Losinj and my grandmother in Sibnik. But I'm born in Argentina, Alejandro Alex Chafuen. I'm managing director of the Acton Institute, which is an organization based in Rapids, Michigan, founded in 1990. I was one of the founding directors, and now I'm managing director of the international area. Our mission is to promote a free and virtuous society. We are grounded on Judeo-Christian principles and guided by the best social science. We have become the leading organization in the world promoting the benefits of the free economy in the area of religion and morality. We have a budget of around $12 million. The number of donors is between 1,000 and 2,000 donors. We don't accept any government money. So I will show you a few videos that describe our organization and then make a few comments. And so I've asked if you can show the first one, which describes in a few minutes what we do in different areas.
What is Acton Institute all about? Immersing yourself in ideas, in deeper conversations. What causes poverty? Where's the line between power and hurt? What's the connection? What is the virtue? What happens next? We're so much more than a think tank. We live at the intersection of markets and morality, of religious faith and the free market. We believe in human potential. In connecting good intentions with sound economics. And we believe that only liberty most effectively promotes human flourishing. But freedom without virtue isn't true freedom. We're initiators and investigators, content creators and commentators, entrepreneurs and change agents, theologians and thought leaders. We stand for freedom, free enterprise, and stronger moral foundations. What are we all about? Promoting a free and virtuous society.
Frontlines developed to preserve and promote a free society and strengthen its moral foundations. We have pursued that goal by conducting in-depth academic research, producing a peer-reviewed scholarly journal, issuing a quarterly magazine, and publishing dozens of groundbreaking books that drive those ideals. We have connected with like-minded people in our unique events, online and in person, where world-changing ideas are conceptualized and nurtured. In the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, we successfully transitioned our flagship event, Acton University, to a best-in-class online conference, attended by nearly 4,000 critical thinkers from around the globe, and held our first ever poverty tourism. We are producing hard-hitting documentaries like The Hong Konger, which tells the amazing story of pro-democracy activist Jimmy Lai and his struggle for freedom in Hong Kong.
Mr. Martin insisted on not showing his trust so that Tories could see better freedom.
ongoing work on global poverty alleviation, we've just started production on a new documentary looking at the problems that hinder the success and human flourishing of underprivileged individuals in the United States. Along with those vital stories, we produce videos and written work that drive change in the world. And we've taken these messages directly to the media and into the halls of power where they can have a direct, positive impact. Acton has also completed a multi-year project translating the works of Dutch theologian Abraham Kuyper into English for the first time in history, making Kuyper's ideas accessible to everyone. Now, we're diving deep into expanding our ecumenical outreach. This includes new projects like the Midwife that Alice Allen on Economic Economics, as well as the future release of Father Robert Rico's new book of economic reflections on comparables of Jesus. This is the evidence of our ever-expanding work to grow an understanding and appreciation for liberty within various religious traditions. To make all of this possible, Acton scholars are deeply engaged with leading professors and phenomenal students at colleges and seminaries across the United States and the world. As the future approaches, there is no sign of slowing down. We have already started making plans to welcome people back in person to Grand Rapids or Acton University in June 2022.
It's really amazing, and frankly humbling, to see all that Acton has accomplished in the span of 3 decades, and in particular all the lives we've been able to touch across the globe. But what really gets me fired up and excited to come to the office every day are the ever-expanding opportunities in front of us. The recent global turbulence has been difficult for everyone, but it has also underscored that we cannot take markets or individual freedom or the commercial society for granted, nor can we take for granted a virtuous culture that holds civilization together. Perhaps now that we have this is Acton's moment to shine.
The Acton Institute, promoting a free and virtuous society characterized by individual liberty and sustained by religious principles.
Well, just to get an idea, we highlight the role of entrepreneurs because we think they are the great engine of growth in a country, the people who help create job opportunities. And the last movie that we made, Jimmy Lai, as you might know, is in jail now in Hong Kong. He could be anywhere in the world enjoying a life of a billionaire, but he's in jail because he's faithful to his religious views and his commitment to the free society. For those of you in the audience, I think the most important things here for the youth, we have a program of emerging leaders scholarship during 2-3 months during the summer. We also have scholarship for Acton University. I recommend that some of you come. Before COVID, we had 1,000 people from 80 countries coming, and now we also stream it online. We give awards also to young writers. For those of you in politics and policy, we have a network working on poverty issues with think tanks and universities in more than 140 countries. So if you want solutions for poverty, come to us. And also, we have a quiet program for almost a quarter century. We have been doing like retreats for bishops. Again, more than 100 bishops from the Roman Catholic Church come. And so if you have a bishop you want to recommend to us, we would hopefully find room for him in this program. So thank you, Center for the Renewal of Culture. Thank you, New Direction and Leadership Institute. It's a privilege to be here with us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex, and I hope you enjoyed those videos. I think one of the main messages of Acton's work is that free markets, economic freedom is what leads people out of poverty. Not socialism, not big government programs, but economic freedom. So if Croatia is suffering from economic underdevelopment, the solution is not more government, but less government, getting politics out of the economy and allowing free individuals to prosper and to flourish. And I think this is something that needs to be reinforced repeatedly in Croatia, this message, because most people by default tend to think in socialist terms and expect far too much from our government. Our friend and fellow speaker John O'Sullivan will be arriving later today from Hungary. So I've been asked to read the mission statement of his institution, the Danube Institute, which is based in Budapest. So I'll read it there on behalf of John. So the Danube Institute was established by the Lajos Foundation in 2013 in Budapest with the aim of encouraging the transmission of ideas and people within the countries of Central Europe and between Central Europe and other parts of Europe and the English-speaking world. The Institute itself has been committed from its foundation to 3 philosophical loyalties: a respectful conservatism in cultural, religious, and social life, the broad classical liberal tradition in economics, and a realistic Atlanticism in national security policy. These ideals remain our lodestars. More recently, we have added a 4th commitment: exploring and extending the related concepts of democracy and patriotism. We believe that the nation-state offers the only sure foundation for democracy and a tolerant civic nationalism, the only basis for a successful democratic internationalism. Nation-states are the building blocks of internationalism. Both are to be distinguished from supra or transnationalism, in other words, the EU, which embody the ambition to transcend them, but which have so far failed to match them in democratic accountability. Our methods of developing and transmitting these ideas are research, analysis, publication, debate, and scholarly exchanges. Our primary audience is the universe of center-right intellectuals, political leaders, and public-spirited citizens. But we will also engage our counterparts on the democratic center-left in vigorous and principled public debate on as many occasions as possible and appropriate. We hope to draw upon the best minds of our day across national boundaries in international forums. Debate itself is our 5th commitment. It is a vital catalyst in building a democratic society. And to establish and support research groups and research projects to interpret and advance current thinking within conservatism and democratic nationalism. To encourage the exchange of scholars, political leaders, and cultural figures through conferences and exchange fellowships here in Hungary. To engage young people interested in science, scholarship, political ideas, and to help them to enter and influence the wider public debate. And finally, in general, to encourage relevant discussions on matters of importance to Hungary on both the domestic and international level. So that's on behalf of the Danube Institute. John will be joining us for panels later in the course of this conference. So I urge you to look at the website. They've been doing work since 2013. And John, as our friend Robin Harris, for many years was a close collaborator of Lady Thatcher when she was Prime Minister of Great Britain. And so it'll be an honor for us to host John as well here in Split. So that's all for me for now. I'll give the floor to Ron, who will say something on behalf of Leadership Institute.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Ron Nearing. I'm the Director of International Programs for the Leadership Institute. We are an American NGO that was founded in 1979. The purpose of Leadership Institute is really based on the recognition that having the best ideas is not enough to win in politics. If you look around the world, there are plenty of people with terrible ideas who get elected to office all of the time, and we've seen the negative results of that around the world. So we're not a think tank. I think the Acton Institute and other institutes that are represented here do a terrific job on that. But what we do with the Leadership Institute is we teach the techniques necessary to win in politics, and that's why we're here. So many of our programs are available online at leadershipinstitute.org, but our international division, which I lead, we travel around the world and regularly provide this type of training to audience people such as yourselves and others. We just came from Estonia from a terrific program put on by New Direction there. I'm joined by my colleagues Steve Sutton and Rick Tyler. This is Rick Tyler here. Steve Sutton is here. You'll hear from us from about 3 to 6 p.m. today. And we're going to share a little bit about how to communicate your ideas effectively and persuasively to an audience. So I'm not going to give my afternoon talk now, but we're delighted to be here. We're delighted to join this esteemed audience. I want to thank New Direction and Robert Tyler for the great job that they've done in terms of rallying the conservative movement around Europe. And I want to thank Stephen as well for the relationship and the opportunity to join you this afternoon and talk a little bit about the techniques that you can use to more effectively persuade your target audience and help to move them in your direction so that you have the opportunity to put your ideas into action. Thank you very much. We'll see you this afternoon.
Hello, good morning. My full name is Alvino Mario Fantini. You may call me Mario. I am American, Bolivian, and Italian. So multiculti, I think you would say. I'm here primarily representing, as editor-in-chief, this magazine, The European Conservative, which is an English language only quarterly publication. And it used to be that it was just a magazine, just a journal, but we're growing so fast in these last 2 years that we're becoming more of a media project. And I'd like to take a few moments to tell you about that very briefly. This journal started about 10 years ago through the efforts of Roger Scruton and a group of about 20 other conservative intellectuals, philosophers, and writers. It began as a 4-page newsletter, and we send it out as a PDF. And then it started growing, and now we are at 128 beautiful pages. We also have a website, and I encourage you to look at EuropeanConservative.com. As I mentioned, it's a media project, a growing thing, because beyond the journal, beyond the website, we're about to start in the next month or two an office in Brussels, again, in the belly of the beast, as someone put it, of journalists and investigative reporters. We're hoping to take the battle to those fronts, to start investigating all these people and institutions on the left that have been attacking conservatives for years. There is a group in London that has been researching conservatives for many years, and no one on our side has defended ourselves, has pushed back. That group in London is called Open Democracy, and they routinely, regularly publish stories about the dark money on the right, or the dark money on the Christian right in Europe. But no one among conservatives is doing this kind of work against the left. So we're hoping that we can start doing that in Brussels. A couple more words about this media project and this journal and the website. There are 3 things that I would consider our main objectives. One is we try to treat all forms of conservatism with seriousness, with academic rigor. We're always exploring to understand the different conservative traditions. As Rob put it so well, there are many different traditions. There isn't a universal ideology that must be imposed. So we're as interested in Italian conservatism as we are in Croatian conservatism, as we are in Japanese conservatism. And we treat them all with a certain respect that is lacking. The second objective is that we're trying to expand that space in which these discussions can be held. I think for years, we conservatives have been pushed into a corner and we can't speak about certain topics. Well, we want to break open that space. We want to push back and say, we have to talk about, for example, immigration with seriousness. We have to be able to talk about immigrant crime in some countries with seriousness. We need to talk about so many other topics with seriousness that the mainstream media and the liberal ruling elites do not allow us to talk about. So that's the second objective, to push open that space so we can have a discussion. And the third main objective that we have is to remind people that it's not just about politics, that it's also about culture, and more importantly, in our case, it's about beauty. So if you look at the journal, I brought some copies, I'm happy to give them to you. A lot of it is artwork and design and beautiful images and paintings by master artists. Very few, perhaps no political magazine does this, but we're trying to reintegrate things. We're trying to reintegrate the arts with literature, with politics, because it's all part of a whole. That inheritance that we Europeans, or Euro-Americans in my case, have inherited. And it's been forgotten, and in some cases it's being erased by the ruling elites. So those are my main comments. I'm happy to talk to you about this and our work, and I'm always looking for new writers. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mario. Mario is an old friend. We met years ago at a conference in the Netherlands, and our friendship has grown since then, and this is not the first time Mario's been to Croatia. I'm pleased that the European Conservative magazine is doing so well. It's not an easy job to produce quality publishing 4 times a year. So congratulations on what's happened in the last few years and what you've achieved. We're a little ahead of schedule, so I'm going to just announce how we're going to continue. We're going to have a coffee break shortly, and then we're going to resume around 11 o'clock, at 11 o'clock, for the next session, which will be discussing the nature of freedom. So it'll be more philosophical. I think we need to get off to, at the very beginning, to explain really what the nature of freedom is, how it's essential to our human nature as created beings, how we're created by God, and to discuss the ends of freedom and how to protect it. We know, living in a former communist country, that we cannot take freedom for granted. It's something very fragile that can crumble and even disappear. And only if we speak out and are willing to defend it will we be able to retain our freedom for ourselves and our families. And so for the younger generations, I hope you appreciate the reality that you're growing up in a free country. Many of your parents and grandparents were not given such a privilege. They were not able to attend events like this and listen to ideas. Everything was strictly controlled by the Communist Party. So we need to, restate this basic truth that in many countries, perhaps today, we should appreciate freedom more than in others that have been free for centuries. So I hope that it'll be beneficial to everyone, that you'll stay with us till the bitter end. We will be here until Thursday, when we conclude with the final session. So we've done a lot of work in assembling this team of speakers here to come to Croatia. They're very busy people traveling in many countries around the world. And so I urge you to take this opportunity to really listen and to participate in discussions. The panels are designed for interaction with you in the audience. So please take the opportunity to ask questions. It doesn't have to be in perfect English. You don't have to be afraid. We're all very polite and more than willing to answer your questions. So I urge especially the younger guests here who are attending to take full advantage of this opportunity. So we'll break now and then resume at 11. Thank you.